Good to see you. It's been a long day, and the good news for you is I only have a little bit of time because you don't want me to get going on how labor's been, how can I say it, gotten the short end of the stick for so long. Because you're going to be going over in just a few minutes to see the president. The reason I'm a few minutes late, I was with the president on a foreign policy matter in the Oval, and he wanted to make sure I don't hold you up because you're all going to go over to the town hall with the president. And we have, I'm told, everybody here, Rich and Harold are here, Mary Kay, all you guys here, I can't even see out there, but the backbone of organized labor is here, and building trades, plumbers, AFSCME, I go down the whole list here. And as I said, I know you've had a long day, so I'm going to be untypically blunt with you. The fact is that through President Obama's leadership, we actually have gone from crisis to recovery on the cusp of actually having a renaissance in our economic possibilities relative to the rest of the world. But the truth of the matter is, because of the way the deck has been stacked the previous 10 to 12 years, middle-class folks have been getting hurt, and they're still getting hurt. And I brought this little chart. You all know it. You've seen it 100 times. A direct correlation between what, in fact, when the share of income going to the top 10% and union membership. As union membership rose, it was about even. Everybody got in on the deal. When union membership plummeted, you see what happens. And the truth of the matter is, you all actually, and it's not hyperbole, built the middle class. You built the middle class. And you built all those in the middle class who never belonged to a union. The rights they have, the benefits they receive, were only because of the labor movement in the United States of America, because they knew companies would either give those rights and protections or you'd unionize them. And so you forced everything up. And the fact is that, without the ability to sit down with management and look across the table and be able to make demands is what you want, and having the power to be able to negotiate, there's nobody left out there to protect workers. It's a simple proposition. There used to be a balance. There used to be a basic balance. And so, the fact is that, companies expanded, as companies expanded benefits and workers' salaries went up and improved working conditions, Americans at work, all of them did better. And it used to be that at the end of World War II to the early 70s, workers, as they became more productive, there was a direct correlation between productivity and your wages. There was actually just a basic bargain. If you contributed to the profitability of an outfit, you got to share in the benefits. I mean, it was real. No, but by the way, isn't it kind of crazy we have to clap for that? Because that's what it used to be. And that was a bargain basically accepted by Democrats and Republicans since the New Deal. That was a basic bargain. We disagree on degree between the parties, but there was never this argument that somehow, back in when Reagan was president, President Reagan, I was serving at the time in the United States Senate. The average worker relative to the CEO made sometime, if I'm not mistaken, about 30 times as much as the average CEO. Now it's 300 times. What happened? How did that occur? Well, an awful lot of things changed. Some of it, they argue, is the folks in the other team argue it's all globalization. Globalization had a little bit to do with it. But the fact of the matter is, the rules got changed in a big way. Both fiscal policy and tax policy got changed. So a heck of a lot less went to be able to maintain a middle-class livelihood. And by the way, you've heard me say it before. Let me clear what I mean by middle class, what you build. You have all the economists will tell you middle class is a number. It's 51,200 or 50,800. Middle class is not a number. It's a value set. It's a value set. It's been able to own your own home and not have to rent it. It's been able to send your kid to a park where they can be safe and you know they're going to come home safely. It's about being able to send them to high school. You know if they do well, they get to college. If they get to college, you can pay for them to get there. And when mom or dad passes away, you can take the other parent in and hope your kids never have to take you in or take care of you. But it's shrinking. It's shrinking for a whole lot of reasons, but some of which we can control. A key part of that reason is to be able to sit down and actually bargain. Between 2003, if I'm not mistaken, and 2013, corporate America made $4.6 trillion. That's a good thing ordinarily. But what happened? 54% of that went to buying back their own stock. 37% went to dividends, leaving 9% for everything else. Expansion, research and development, salaries, raises. How'd that happen? Well, I'll tell you how it happened. The reason I took a look at it was because the president asked me to put together a proposal for how to make sure we had the best trained workforce in the world. So we did about 8 months of serious work. And one of the things I remember speaking with the Secretary of Labor about was, you know, it's kind of funny. Businesses aren't reinvesting in retraining workers. Why? How many times you hear, I don't have enough trained personnel? Well, in the old days, they'd actually go train personnel. But now they want the government to do it. I wondered why that was the case. Well, if you only have 9% left, and how'd that change? I'm going to make several broad points, and they're going to be much more detail when you talk to the president. First thing is that all of the alphabet agencies got changed. The SEC, you didn't used to be able to buy back your own stock like that. Along came Reagan, new appointments, and guess what? You could buy back all your stock you wanted. What happened? Increased concentration of wealth. Guess what? It's not some liberal think tank or Obama and Biden who think that's a problem. You have Standard & Poor's. You have the IMF saying the biggest concern about growth, economic growth, is concentration of wealth. If you're a manufacturer makes widgets and people don't have enough money to buy your widgets, you're not going to do that well. Wasn't just changing agencies. You saw what we've been fighting to do now with your help to make sure that we actually have the National Labor Relations Board actually wearing striped shirts now instead of black shirts. And we're making some progress. Also, in terms of the tax structure, we reward unearned income more than we ever have in our history, as opposed to earned income, a paycheck. We're in a situation now where the way in which we look at the tax structure, it's awful hard to figure out how the middle-class guy's getting a shot. So we've come up with a bunch of things. I'm not going to go through them all, but everything from making sure that we're going to triple the minimum child care tax credit for workers. By the way, you know one of the problems is women are dropping out of the labor market. It's not because they're good economists. They figure out, if I'm making 40 grand a year and it's costing me 20 grand a year for my kid in a daycare, then it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Better for my kid if I stay home and try to get benefits, help raise my kid. I love it how they say that average people don't understand their own economic interest. So we want to make sure that we increase the child care credit. $500 tax credit for dual wage earners. They're getting hurt. They should get help. Dramatic expansion of overtime protection for 5 million workers. That should be across the board in every single solitary contract you used to be able to negotiate, and now you're not there to negotiate those contracts. There's only so much the president can do by the executive authority. Paid sick leave. What a radical idea. What a radical idea. Today we're backing the Wage Act coming out of Congress. Creates a private right of action for workers seeking back pay, liquidated damages. It establishes penalties. It's amazing how employers pay attention to penalties. They're good guys by and large, but if the system sends them in one direction, that's what they're likely to do. Whole businesses jointly liable for violations affecting workers supplied by another employer, such as temporary agencies. Where legal interference occurs preventing free and fair elections taking place, certify a union where the majority of employees signed an authorization card in the previous 12 months. But here, but the generic point I want to make, and I really do have to let you go or I'm going to get in trouble. And I know none of you wonder about where my sentiments lie. I was having lunch with Rich a month ago, Trumpka, and we talked about what do we have to do to think differently in 2015 as to how to revive collective bargaining. How do we do that? Some of you remember, because you're leaders of not just unions here, there's other good government groups here as well. But you remember my saying back in way back in the late 80s that business declared war on labor's house, and some of you thought I was exaggerating. Everything that's been done has been done to undermine the ability of workers to be able to be represented sitting across the table with an individual speaking for all those workers. Everything has been done. Think about it. All the initiatives that have taken place and been successful. In addition to that, we've lost the, I say we, I consider myself one of you. We've lost the initiative because they have captured the vocabulary. It no longer is the vocabulary we used to be able to use where when we said it, the public automatically said, oh, I get that, that's good. It's like everybody seeks to define by using the vocabulary long enough, like freedom of choice, or right to life, or right to choose, or it matters how it gets characterized. And one of the things I want to sit down with you, some of you privately with, is to talk about how do we change the debate and the language that results in a simple proposition, whatever you call it, collective bargaining, the ability to collectively sit on the other side of a table with an employer and make certain demands that they can choose to agree to or not agree to, and you have some power. That's what I hope comes out of what we're doing here today, what you've done this morning, and what we're talking about at the town hall. Because at the end of the day, that's the only pushback we had. I got in trouble, which is unusual for me, for speaking my mind when I said that labor is the outfit keeping the barbarians at the gate. Well, it was a bit of hyperbole to make a point. The weaker labor is, the worse off the American worker is. It's not because the other guys are bad. It's all about bargaining power. That's how the system's designed to work. And you got to be able to have a counter. And so one of the things that a lot of us are talking about, we'll continue to be talking about, is everything from safer workplaces to better training, the right to organize, to bring workers into the movement, and how we take on some of the special interests that, again, have been able to cloud and confuse the debate about what we're really all about and why it's so critically important to all Americans that there be a generic right to bargain and more people can get in on the game of being able to bargain. In addition to that, changing the tax code, which we're proposing to do, makes a big difference. In addition to that, one of the reasons why the economy grew and the middle class grew is we used to invest significantly in infrastructure. 3% of our economy at the period when it was working from World War II into the 70s. You take a look at the things. Why did it grow so well? Gene's forgotten more about this than I'm going to know. But we spend about 3% of our GDP in infrastructure. We spend about 1% now on infrastructure. Closing comment, guys. Your kids are going to hear the word insourcing a great deal more than our kids, and we heard outsourcing. And that's because America is better positioned than any nation in the world to be the leading economy of the 21st century for 4 or 5 reasons. One, we have now and we will continue to have for the foreseeable future the cheapest energy in the world. So you're going to build a factory, it costs you 4 or 3 to 5 times as much to build the same factory in terms of energy costs in the Far East. In Europe, it's 2 to 3 times more expensive. We have the greatest research universities in the world. No other country can remotely compete. That's why all the innovative stuff that happens here in America. We were bright enough back in the Eisenhower administration to decide not to put it all into government. We decided it should go to research universities. There's an incredible competition. We have the most agile venture capitalists in the world. We actually have a court system that protects intellectual property and adjudicates contracts fairly. And we have the most productive workers in the world. That's a fact. Workers in the United States are 3 times as productive as they are in China. That's not meant to criticize China. It's just a fact. It's who we are. And so, folks, we need 2 things. We need the best trained workforce in the world as these companies are. That's why they're coming home. We need the best trained workforce in the world. And we need the best infrastructure in the world. Society of Engineers thinks we need to invest over $3 trillion by 2022 just to stay even. Imagine the virtuous cycle that begins. It attracts businesses, it keeps businesses, it generates not minimum wage jobs, but good paying jobs, from surveyors making $90,000 and engineers making $120,000 to the guy laying the concrete making $60,000, $70,000. But in the meantime, while this is happening, the fight we have is we can't let the average American out of benefiting from this deal. That's why we need organized labor. That's why we need more collective bargaining. That's why we need more protection for workers' rights. Because it's coming, this resurgence. The question is, they shouldn't all be, figuratively speaking, median income workers with a minimum wage, even if it's a good minimum wage. So we're counting on you. We need your help. We need your suggestions. We need your muscle. We need to move. And if I don't move, I'll be demoted to Secretary of State or something like that. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke. Well, thank you. Come on, let's go.